Hey, everybody. I think I just woke up Tito in the background. It's like, Dad, what are you screaming about? Welcome. It is the weekend. I dipped out of work about 30 minutes early here. So I was wrapping up a few things. And Neil, what's going on? It's been a interesting couple weeks. So a couple cool things are happening. One, I finally pulled the trigger on in a good way. I pulled the trigger on starting to build a web app. So if you haven't noticed, I've almost been I think I streamed every day this week. I don't even remember, to be honest. Let's see. So in total, we have 3 hours and pretty much 2 hours. We have 11 hours of live streams of me hacking some shit out. So pretty I've really been enjoying that. And that's sort of been my new project as of late. I'm it's been interesting. They don't get a ton of views. I mean, the first one did. That's always happens. Someone watches, then they fall off and they go from there. But I'm building a production application, and so I'm doing exactly as I would in the work environment. Fully tested. We have UI UX. I'm paying someone to do UI UX like $7 for a component. Nothing crazy, right? But I fully plan to release this down the road. That was one of my New Year's goals. So, reminder to you guys: every year I set goals, professional, personal, and one of my goals this year was to not. Every year I want to release one course. Bam, we did it. At least one, right? Another one of my goals was to release a web application and go to a conference. I've gone to one conference. I probably should sneak a second. I think I said I want to go to 2 conferences, and I want to speak at a meetup. So I have a meetup lined up. I just have to get my talk together, and then it was write the book. The book, it's not going to get done this year. The progress is being made, but it's not going to get done. This web app, I think I can get done by the end of the year and launch something that's really kind of nice and that's going to, do some good. Going to be a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it though. And my plan with it, as crazy as it sounds, is to live stream me building the whole thing essentially. And other than about 30 minutes of minor tweaks that I did off camera when I was waiting for Ricky to talk to him about some UI UX stuff, we've got there, which is crazy. So like, not only will you guys get to see me build this thing, but like you'll see we're gonna launch this and it's gonna be successful. Modestly successful. We'll see how successful, unsuccessful it is, but it's gonna be there. It's gonna be ready for people. Yeah. It's gonna be PWA. It's gonna be responsive. Although we're doing a desktop first approach and we're coming back for the responsive aspect. So part of the reason for that is I don't know what I want it to look like on mobile, and I don't even want to think about it right now. So I want to get this first initial phase out, and then we can circle back, and see how we want it. Did I already implement PWA? Parts of it. So we've added the web manifest, and we have it hooked into. It's hooked into the Angular application. The only thing we have to do is add a service worker, and then but I haven't done that yet. Partly because I don't know what I want to cache yet, and what my caching strategy is even going to be. So the application itself, that's all we have to really left to do. Other than theoretically, it's supposed to be responsive, but there's like 3 things you need to officially be a PWA. I don't have any issue with getting the responsive design down. That's easy. You throw a media query and you do it. The issue that I always have is design. So I'm focused on the design aspect, and right now I'm getting a single mock-up for desktop. I don't want to have to redesign for mobile because this site is designed for developers, and something like 90% of people are gonna do it. But yeah, so like that. Here's the thing about like design. Most of us developers are either designers or we're developers. We're not usually both, and some are. There's some unicorns out there. Just like how when you have full stack devs, some are really good in the back end, could do a little bit of front end, or some are really good in the front end, could do a little bit of back end, even though they're all full stack. That's generally how it goes. Same thing goes with design. So what you can do is exactly what I do, where I use Balsamic. I can't show you because it's live stream, but I use Balsamic to get a high level overview. I describe the color scheme that I want, and then I just go and I get some mock-ups made for like $7 on Fiverr per screen. And like I've been using the same dude. I've used him 4 times now. Some thunder down under scared my cat. But so I've been just designing these general things, and you make tweaks to it. You like some stuff, and like I've been using my network and friends, and like essentially Rick. I've been talking with Ricky. I don't know what Figma is, and Sketch is a little bit more detailed. Sketch, I think, is for prototyping, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So Balsamic is like very high level. So like just Google Balsamic wireframe and you'll see that it looks like someone just hand drew some crap out. That's Balsamic. It's like this is gonna have a card. There's gonna be a title here. It's gonna be there, and content's image is gonna be here. It's just gonna literally just be a very very basic thing. Yeah, the chair. So it's disgusting. That chair, my cat sleep. All 3 of my cats sleep in it, and the dog sometimes, and it's covered in hair. I clean it off about once every 2 months, but it's absolutely has a layer of fur on top of it. So like we're having, I'm flying April's sister and boyfriend out, so they can come see us and really just see her. They don't care about seeing me, but yeah, so I'm flying them out, and I got to clean that chair off before they come in here, and I got to decide if I'm gonna put a bigger bed than the twin, but I think they're gonna get stuck with the twin. But yeah, so that's one thing that you can do for design. It's just a simple drawing, mock-up, wireframe to illustrate the idea, and then when you're done with that, you can go ahead and send it to somebody who has some design chops and do it from there. And once you have it about 90% of the way, you can tweak it from there. It's relatively easy. And I always run things through like someone who does UI UX. Yeah. I love it though. Like not like love the design aspect, but I it's hard to come up with like good stuff of it's so like part of the reason I always do when I start something like that um is thank you, baby. My baby over here in the chat trying to boost them likes. I appreciate that. uh, but not only is it hard to, because the reason you do the wireframes is to conceptualize what it is you're actually building and get it out. So get it from concept, from the abstract to reality on paper, and get out of your head, and then see what makes sense, what doesn't, start tweaking things. And once you have that idea of, okay, this is how the page is going to flow, you can then send it to someone to say, hey, make it look pretty, make it make sense. Have I ever used Mockflow? No. I'm open to all this sort of stuff though. Oh yeah, this is the same thing. This is like what is this? Yeah, so this is essentially the same thing. This just looks like a web version. I'm gonna bookmark this and take a look at it. But yeah, you have the same general idea here. I looks nice though. How much time in a given day did you spend developing when you first started? Like when I was trying to become a developer, or when I was already a developer after the fact? Thanks for that, Dante. I'm gonna actually throw it up on my when I first became a developer. So personally, if I had my choice of how I would get my designs, it'd be in InVision. I hate Photoshop files; they're so bad. But they can be bad. But yeah, InVision works just fine. I don't really care as long as it makes sense and is consistent. There's nothing worse than getting a design that's inconsistent and then Sorry, I'm adding to the Trello board to look into Mockflow. Yeah, there's nothing worse than looking at a design that's inconsistent, and then you see like, oh, this is supposed to be different in 3 different spots, and you have to go back to the designer and ask which one is right, and they don't know because they did it wrong. uh, so when I first started out, we'll say I had already been studying, but I dropped out of college. So when I dropped out of college, I took a job at a software company to do like technical documentation and like business analyst type role. I was putting in probably 3 hours to 4 hours on the weekdays. Mind you, I'm working 40 hours a week. And on the weekends, I was putting like 8 to 14. Now, after I got a job, um, after I got a job, I my first junior level job, I spent pretty much that same amount of effort and energy to get my skills up. Nowadays, as I'm continuing to learn, it's a little bit different. I can basically do my job just fine. So, um, if I need to, like, if I take a job where I don't know technology, I'll do a 20, 40 hour course and build something in it, and I'm good to go. Um, so it's a little bit different nowadays. I Most of my energy, I would still say I put about 1 to 2 hours a day into coding, but they're typically in side projects or they're typically in something that's related to software and maybe doesn't have anything to do with code. Like maybe it's the podcast I'm working on, maybe it's the my web app I'm building, maybe it's the YouTube channel. Do I still use Udemy course to learn new technologies? Yeah, man. For $10, you get a 20, 30 hour course on Angular. Why not? Like that's value, and it's going to cover everything. Do I coach new developers in finding a job? Sort of. I do. I do paid mentoring sessions, and that's usually the number one thing people want is like, hey, why aren't I getting callbacks? And so we look at your LinkedIn, we look at your GitHub, we looked at your resume, your cover letter, and we see what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and then we make recommendations. So if you're interested in that, you can shoot me an email. I charge $150 an hour, and I'm doing one. I do about 1 or 2 a week right now. Um, Hi there. I recently got an interview and got my official work contract after 2 days. The payment is a little bit low. Any tips for a counteroffer? Yes, I always would say counteroffer at least $5,000. That's usually a pretty reasonable counteroffer. And if they say they don't have any more room in the budget, uh, they ask for more vacation or ask for something else that makes the offer more attractive. Maybe a remote day, something that maybe isn't monetary per se. 150, yeah. So the way that I charge for my time is always a 2.25 multiple of my hourly rate. And so as my hourly rate goes up, I've multiplied that by the hourly rate being like if we were to break down my base salary. And honestly, if we count in bonuses, I should probably raise it up. Um, but that mentoring rate goes up slightly as as my income goes up, so does that, because time is money, right? Every minute I sit down and spend with you is a minute I'm not working on a web application that could make me $1,000 a month, stuff like that, or a course or whatever it may be. I can't sit down and mentor everybody, right? But that's why I do these live streams, so I can, in a sense. um, is the mentoring done through emails or Skype? So usually Google Hangouts. It's a video chat. So that's usually how I do it. So how was your initial days of coding? Was it a pain in the ass? Frustrating, definitely frustrating. And I remember crying on several times and feeling like you just feel dumb and like frustrated is really the perfect word, because you're like, I know I want to reverse the string. I don't know how to do it. I know what a reverse string is. I know what a non-reverse string is. I don't know how I get it there. And then you just like, you want to punch your monitor and throw your computer out the window, but it's frustrating. Do you think PWAs or most basic apps will be heading? I think it's a possibility. I think you're starting to see it already happen. Give my term for free and like it done. Eh? Which one has more scope, web dev or Android dev? I think by more scope you mean more possibilities or more employable. Um, web dev. So, yeah, man, and that's the thing. You do feel dumb, and I'm not kidding you, man. I've spent an entire weekend. This is part of like one, I don't know, I didn't know how to learn properly. Two, I didn't know how to Google properly, and three, I just didn't calm down. I kid you not, probably 24 hours of an entire weekend trying to understand what the hell an API was doing. I was like crying at my keyboard because I just didn't get it. I did not get it. I spent Friday night, all of Saturday, all of Sunday, and I could not get this weather API to work. All right, I didn't understand what API was. I didn't understand why theirs worked. I didn't understand what it was even doing. I just didn't get it. I spent all this time, and then I went into work on Monday, and I asked I asked one of the developers, and he explained it to me in 30 seconds. And because I'd spent all that time sort of on the edges, I just didn't quite get it. I finally, in that 30 seconds, it was like everything made sense. Once he put that little one word in there that sort of connected all this sort of data that wasn't really related for me at that point. Yeah. So, what do you think about Bootstrap 4 versus CSS Grid? So, if you're using Bootstrap for the responsive design, I highly encourage you to stop. Can you explain how to learn properly? This is sort of up for debate. So, um, I mean, what I would say is how I like to learn is I'll go and do like a 1 hour video on YouTube, like some crash course, right? And then I'll build something in it. If I still feel like I can't build it, I'll watch a Udemy course. Or if I build something, I'm like, I didn't learn everything, I'll go watch a Udemy course and I'll build something. That's really it. That's how I do it. Do I recommend the Udacity Backend Now degree program? I don't know. I'm not familiar with it. How to gain more professional experience than that person only has personal projects on their resume. Although Joshua Fluke will disagree with me about certificates, I do think they provide value because to certain people, they show your technical ability. So I think certificates are an easy way to continue to show that you're growing. I would also say that if you have a big enough personal projects, if you have a big enough personal project, what you can do is buy URL, make an LLC, say that you worked on it for 9 months. I've known countless devs who have started their own, like they didn't want to have a gap in their resume, so they started the 2, 3 of them started their own LLC and did side work, and so that was, and they essentially self-employed. That's one way of going about it. What certificates? It depends. Bootcamp certs are great. It shows that you have something there. Free code camp certs. What they give you to do is a talking point. Do certifications do anything? No, but it can make you a better developer if you actually learn something. What should we learn to be super prepared for junior web dev role and stand out from the pack? The fundamentals, principles, and just really understand them, because you would be surprised how many people don't. Very informative videos, man. You're doing great stuff. Thanks, man. Do you build something every time you finish a section in a course, or do you finish the whole course and build something? Sort of depends. Nowadays, I sort of use courses when I'm doing new technologies as so like the way you learn is going to transition as you get more and more skilled, right? Um, so chat music, that could very likely be your resume, and it could very like your resume says a lot about you and what's on there and how we can improve it. So, um, you know, um, have I ever been drug tested for a role? Yes, several. I'm looking at a position at a big company that might drug test and feels invasive. I mean, it's a right to work. You have to decide if that's something you're willing to do or not. I don't have a problem with it. Um, Most companies will drug test you one time and then leave you alone. So, um, unless they feel like they have some I remember someone told me before I started working at this company that someone left a joint in their in their like little drawer. You know how you have like your filing cabinets? He's like, no, it's not mine. It's like, whose joint is it? It's in your desk. And I'm like, well, we're gonna drug test you. No, I don't want drug test again. The guy just quit. Um, anyhow, but yeah, man. I mean, uh, some companies do it. It is invasive. I wouldn't say it's not, um, but you gotta decide if that's worth it or not for you. Do you enjoy Vue more than React? Yeah. So for me, I like Angular and Vue than React. That's just sort of my personal preference. How's the job growth and security looking for web development? I get job offers daily. So, so I mean, I can tell you right now, my work can't find JavaScript devs to save their life, and we're paying top dollar. We have great benefits. You get hired at the same level as me, you're in six figures with double digit bonuses, with 20 plus days PTO, and a whole bunch of other bonuses. We can't find anybody. We can't find any senior JS devs to save our lives. Um, you know, isn't the Tampa area. So, yeah. Jatuus, I have so many app ideas and projects that seem interesting to build, but I find it hard to get the motivation to start any of them. Advice. So I always say just start building it out and actually working the idea out. So instead of just being one idea in your head, go start drawing it out and what it would actually take and see it and keep that passion going and see if you're actually passionate about it. Could you not be getting a phone call because your projects on GitHub might not be that great? I mean, that's a possibility. I think it sort of depends, but yeah, getting your code looked at. So I always tell people to go back once a year and refactor their code because you should be a better developer a year later than you are today. You think there's no difference between web developers and software engineers? There's definitely is in the sense that a web developer typically makes less money and does things like jQuery, while a software engineer or even a full stack software engineer like me that does web development, they're doing higher level things in web development and they make more money. How do you forget that you have a joint in your desk? I imagine because you were hitting the joint. For web dev people, do you need to make a portfolio? You don't need to make a portfolio. You don't need to do anything. It can help. What to expect for a junior's first day at the job? Really depends on the quality of the company. Some will throw you in there. Don't expect a bunch of training. I haven't been at a place yet that gives you much training. Don't be afraid to ask for things, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Nobody wants to move to Tampa. Tampa's a great area to live in. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the so Florida was the fastest growing state with the most money that got shifted to it, which means house prices are going to go up, which means it's a great time to buy. Secondly, there's no state tax, so if you're going from California to Florida, you're gonna instantly save like 11%, 11 grand a year. Not to mention lower cost of living. Like for me, I came to Florida to save money. When I leave in 2 years from Florida, I'll have six figures in the bank from just being in Florida for about a little over 5 years, and that's as I've been ramping up in my career. I've doubled my income in 2 years in Florida. How long did it take from your first day of self study to first day of off the job? That's always hard to say, but I always tell people around 7 months. Now I was studying before then, but I was also in school, so I didn't really say I dedicated myself to I dropped out of college. Types of personal projects would you recommend for a front end developer? I always like progressive web apps because that's something I'm cool about, and it's sort of leading edge or bleeding edge rather, and so it shows that you're up to date. A CRUD app is something that is always good, something that connects to an API, and just a basic portfolio. Um, what makes someone a senior? That depends, but to me, it's the quality of their code, testing, clean code principles, and just principles in general. It's very easy to tell. So like, I was trying to have this conversation with April when we were at lunch, and she asked me this exact same question. And for me, it's very easy to tell by the quality of somebody's code where they're at, um, because the junior developer gets it to work. Um, the senior developer gets it to work and then makes sure it will continue to work. And the way they do that is by having things loosely coupled. The way they do that is with testing. The way they do that is with architecture and following certain principles. That's typically, for me, what defines senior developer. Now you'll have additional skills and all that sort of stuff, but you'll know everything much more in depth. But those are really those principles. Um, that's what I look for when I'm interviewing senior dev. Do you think so? It's possible for someone to skip the junior dev and go right for the regular developer title? Yeah, I didn't have junior. I went from not having a junior title to having a junior title at a different job, but making more money, to losing the junior title to going to senior. But titles don't really mean anything. Just go get your experience. What do what do you do to avoid job burnout? For me, I'm just I don't work overtime. So and I'm very upfront about it. I've told two people this week, in regards to some work that was happening this weekend. I don't work the weekends. I don't have emails on my phone. I don't have chat on my phone. You call me, you need to get a hold of me once I close my laptop, right on the, right at the end of my 8 9 hours. You got to call me. No, I've had this for like 2 jobs now. No one has called me once. It's the best thing I've ever done. I'm not checking my phone all the time, so that lowers my stress level, and I'm not worried about business. And I put in my hours because I'm making money outside of work, and I'm working on things that are making me a better developer, which will make me a better employee outside of work. So that's how I do it. GraphQL versus REST, I think they're two different things. When is your podcast coming out? So probably, Eric and I have about 10 more episodes of our 24 episodes to film around there. And he's on vacation, but we've been filming like 2 or 3 a weekend. So I would say probably within a month and a half at this rate. I use JavaScript for the most part. Is learning going to be more in demand than web development currently is? If you're a frugal person, you'd get rich in Florida. Yeah. Just stay in Philly or move to Tampa. Do whatever makes you happy, man. What do you think is the minimum someone should know before working as a web dev? So it sort of depends, right? There's internships and there's small web design shops, but I would say the very bare bones minimum would be HTML, CSS. That's it. You might get a little $10 an hour minimum wage design job. Next thing from there is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Git. I would say the thing that I would look for a junior developer that is going to work with me is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Git, testing, and a framework. So that's what I would say for me. What I would absolute bare minimum, that would be what I would want. My favorite way to learn code is just to watch a video and build something, man. I don't have any experience with React hooks. I've been staying away from React. I have no interest. Waiting for you the day tell you to bang your head with a bad interview or a horrible applicant. I've had plenty of interviews with horrible applicants, and the way that you're supposed to handle them, or at least I think you're supposed to educate them about how they answered something wrong, and so that they can become a better developer, and encourage them why they're there. I've heard of very horrible. I've never had this really happen to me in an interview, but I've heard of horror stories where people just are like, "You wasted our time," right then in the interview. No one's really going there wasting their time. They're trying to interview and they're trying to find jobs. That's all that's happening. So I try to make sure that a candidate has a pleasant experience and learns something, so that the next interview they go to, they do better. When should a noob start trying to implement clean code principles? The second you start coding. You should read that book at any point in your career. When do you want to be full blown self employed of working for someone? Well, there's sort of financial goal in that aspect. Um, there is $100,000 of passive income, as well as a $250,000 of minimum income. So it's really that I don't necessarily want to be self employed, but that would be the criteria to get there. We're not too far from there. Um, we'll probably hit this year 170, 160. I don't know. I haven't done the math, but we'll be around there. Um, maybe 150 on the low end. Um, so I would say give me like 3 years. I think we hit 250. Um, so that would be when I would consider it, but I'd probably stay working that. And right now, I'm saving a lot of money to buy an apartment complex. So that's what my next big investment is. So saving a lot of money for that. Get into real estate for a little bit. Um, some generic investments. Looking to buying an e-commerce business. See how Matt does with his. Go from there. But that's really, you know, I mean, what? So I haven't. Once you start making more money than your bills are, you got two things to do. One, save for retirement. Do your simple 401k. Pay off all your debts. So we're debt free minus the house, right? And then the next thing is make your money make money, so that you don't have to work your entire life. So that's all I'm looking for. What state do you think you'll move to if you ever got sick of Florida? We'll probably in a couple years move to somewhere like Utah or Idaho or Washington or Oregon, someplace that's colder. Um, not necessarily on the West Coast, but it could be, but definitely West Morris because that's where our family is. So we're eventually going to head back out that way. No, I'm not building a React app in the future. How much do you expect a junior role to know about a certain framework? I expect them to be able to use a framework of choice. Is there a reason I don't like React? Yeah. I think React makes bad developers. So that's part of it. It lets you hack stuff together better than any of the other stuff, and it lets you essentially just create your own dependencies and whatever little thing that you want, which is just one of the horrors of front end development. Have you ever had have you ever had an applicant that had to add to when you tried to teach her something of that nature? Yeah. I have had people where they act as if they didn't answer something incorrectly and didn't take constructive criticism, and that's as telling as anything else. And so, obviously, whether they got it right or not, that probably would disqualify them. That you can't take constructive criticism, then how are you going to learn and get better, right? Do you learn testing by doing TDD or adding tests to existing projects? So I started adding tests to existing projects, but I have done TDD quite a bit. So at that point, you might try to get a teaching job. I don't know, man. It really just depends. Do you like Bulma CSS? No, I don't use CSS frameworks anymore. Working in startups versus big companies, big tech companies. One of the reasons I think Josh is so upset about his sort of development experience is because he worked at startups, and startups collapse all the time. 9 10 startups collapse, so they get gutted. And the one time I got laid off, I went to the smallest company I ever worked at. So I understand. Yeah, I'd like to have a teaching job. When I have enough money where I can save and invest and do everything else, I'll go teach. But probably at a boot camp. I saw that Cowboy Cerrone versus Justin Gaethje. Yeah, that's gonna be a good one. I, I think Justin's gonna take it. Did I have to practice any soft skills, or were you always great at it? I don't know that I'm constant, so I don't know that I'm great at it. I could say, I think I could say, having done enough interviews, that I'm much more comfortable um, than the average developer. Fluke claims he makes 22K a month. Think that's true? Why would he lie? Think he's out here just trying to flex? Nah, the guy's killing it, man. I don't. What's he gonna gain by lying? But yeah, when it came to soft skills, um, a lot of it you is confidence. So yeah, if you know your stuff well, you can answer very confidently, and people will like that. Um, some of it is being able to just be in that situation enough. If I was interviewing a back end dev, would you expect this dev to know a front end framework? If I'm interviewing someone for back end, why would why would I ask them about a front end framework? It's like, hey, you're interviewing for front end, cool. All right, I need you to know about Android. Like that doesn't, doesn't really go together. You'd be like, hey, this job specifically requires Mandarin, so I need you to know Spanish. That's um. How many interviews for you to start feeling comfortable and in control? Oh my god! So I've talked many times about how I used to throw up before interviews and tests and stressful things like that in college and whatnot. I'd say about five, like five where you like after you tank some so incredibly hard. Like there's been one or two interviews where I've gone in right in my career, and I say, I don't think I could have done any worse. Like I don't know that there will ever be an interview that I do worse. And then eventually, like once you realize that, you're like, all right, cool, I'm good. Like that wasn't too bad. It's like, you overcome your fear a little bit. uh What would be the learning route to become a project manager? This is something I'm not really quite too sure on, to be honest with you. I would probably look up certs and get agile certification. What's Fluke and it's doing, and who's it? So Joshua Fluke on YouTube. That's who he's talking about. Competitive coding good for developing skills? It's good. It's not something I would do. Yeah, yeah. So Master of the Mash. Um, there's nothing wrong with learning React. A lot of companies have it and like it and use it. And so if that's what people are paying for, learn it. Learn what pays and what gets you jobs in your area, and then outside of work, learn what you want to learn. What's the hardest thing you had to learn in your web dev journey? The hardest thing was probably to. The hardest thing for me was to get rid of the self doubt that I had as a software engineer, that because I didn't have a degree. That was the hardest thing for me to overcome. If I was invited to a TED Talk, what would your main message be that you'd want to get across? Clean code principles and testing. That would be what I would talk about. And I would talk about how I would get rid of some of these myths about how it slows down development and this and that. So like, and I would talk about good processes and practices. Like, did you know 1 hour code reviews has been shown to save 33 hours of maintenance? So stuff like that. That would be what I would talk about. How difficult is web dev? It's depends what you're doing in it. Have you had to keep up with any major changes in Angular throughout your career? And are there any pressures for employers to learn those new features quickly? So a lot of people think like Angular's up to 8 now, and I just updated our app from 5 to 8. There's really not that much stuff that changes. A lot of that stuff's in the background. Um, so to be a project manager, you need to be a senior dev. Am I correct? No, most project managers I've ever had can't write code. What's my podcast going to be about? It's called Self Taught or Not, and it's with Eric Hanchett and I. And we have sort of two different perspectives, right? He's more of a traditional route. He's has a bachelor's in computer science, a master's in business. I'm the two-time degenerate dropout. That's all about just a workhorse and side projects. But we talk about everything. Less technical stuff, stuff about like recruiting, stuff about negotiations. The business end of software development, I would say, is what we talk about, and we have different sort of perspectives on some of these things. Talk about agile, JavaScript isn't going anywhere. Yeah. As a front end developer, is it important to learn algorithms? It's important to pass algorithm whiteboard problems. It'll make you a better developer. I've never ever taken a Coursera course. Can't wait for our talk tomorrow. That's right, Trent. Someone was asking about the mentoring sessions. Trent and I have our call tomorrow, and we're gonna do exactly. Trent wants to know what it's gonna take to go from a developer to an engineer, and there's a couple things I saw on his resume. We're gonna talk about quite a few things. What do you think of WebAssembly and where it's going? So WebAssembly is very interesting, where you have this, some would argue, superior technology, and superior technology doesn't always win. We'll see. I think it's a little early on for WebAssembly. We'll see what happens. What's the difference between developer and engineer? It's sort of, well, first off, it's typically $10,000. It's usually the first answer, and also a lot of skill set and like where you're at, and organizations, and so quite a bit. If Microsoft gave me another opportunity, would you do it? Or could you not see yourself living in Seattle? No, I could live in Seattle on the outskirts. I just would, as long as I could work. So like, I don't know, man. The, the only two companies I would really consider. So like, I get job offers all the time, right? People who want me, and nowadays I won't even take their skills to, like, they ask me for a skills test. First, I'll ask them if it pays like 40 grand more than what I make now. They don't typically, and then I'll say, if they does, I'll say, well, okay, cool, and they're like, all right, we need to take you to this assessment. No, because my time's worth $150 an hour outside of work. I don't even really want your job, so I don't take it. So the only two companies I would ever interview with and take a skill assessment for right now would be Microsoft and Google. There's not really another company out there that I'm interested in. I'm very happy at my work. I'm benefits, all that were good. But I work 3-4 days remote. Uh, we're implementing some quality code. I like my boss. My boss is a big selling point. I've had good bosses. I've had bad bosses. So you got to come with me with some big numbers and like an interesting project. And I'm not taking your 2-hour skill assessment. 2 hours is 2 hours I could have worked on my thing. Unless you want to pay me $300 for my 2 hours of time, I'm not doing it. And because I don't want to spend time studying data structures and algorithms, because I don't need it in the front end. So yeah, Microsoft, Google, really only two though that are on the list. Computer, same thing as PC, sure. PC, personal computer. I'm in final year of college. How much time would you say to be a full stack web dev if I start now? I always tell people a year if they put 4 hours a day in. Cold Steel web dev course better than free code camp? I don't know. I do them both. How do people find you for offers so much? Well, if I go to LinkedIn, I get about 10 friend requests a day. I just approve them. And they just, you know, send me, hey, are you interested in this? Sure. What you got? It's just recruiters on LinkedIn, man. No, no, I'm not interested in Facebook. Um, would I take a job there? Yeah. Would I go out of my way to interview there? Not right now, man. Facebook's just every week I see something about Facebook doing something shady. Um, have you ever worked at a company that had way too many meetings? Yeah. Do you follow the latest PC build hardware stuff, or are you content with your current build for your work/gaming life? Yeah, my current computer's a beast. I had it custom built about a year ago, maybe. I'll give you some specs on it. So, uh, maybe 2 years ago. Um, right now I'm running a 16 core Threadripper, and I have 32 gigs of RAM, and it's running a GTX 1080 Ti. So it does everything I need to do. Web dev, you don't really need anything. I just built something, go fast for gaming and whatnot. I've not met Bill Gates. I do Udemy. How big is current dev team I'm on? Like dev team testers, everybody's about 20 deep. Do you need data structure and algorithms for motive? You need to be able to solve algorithm problems. Would I ever host my own hackathon/meetup? Probably not. To be honest with you, I mean, you want to meet up, just show up at one of the conferences I go to. I usually tell people where I'm going. Yeah. I mean, I would like if someone had a hackathon that they were getting together, they wanted some help with, I'd help them with it. I don't have the time to get it up and running though. Like for me, I got enough to. I'm building a web app right now that I plan on releasing. I just finished a course. I'm finishing up a podcast. I got a full-time job already. Um, you know, I mean, would I be open to helping with meetups and hackathons? Yeah, but I can't be the main guy. I just don't have the time. Do I block people from my live streams? Yeah, when people start asking stupid questions. Or offensive things. Have I thought about going all in on my web app? No. Do I think getting into web dev is harder? Yes, but I think there's plenty of opportunity, and I think that the issue I said since day one is that there's not a abundance of developers. There's not a shortage of developers. There's a shortage of good developers. Have you ever thought about moving out of the country? No, not really. Other than like Canada, but that doesn't really count, right? Yeah, video review of the cat. What's wrong with people today? What are your thoughts about working in federal government as a programmer? I wouldn't be opposed to it. They just don't pay as much as the private industry. I mean, I'd work for the government on whatever they want, but my only issue is one, I'm not supporting Internet Explorer. Two, two, you have to pay well, and three, we have to work with new technology. So if for some way the government met all three of those requirements, we're in. It's not gonna happen though. Offline learning and online courses, man. Never learn from one resource. How did you learn how to responsibly spend slash invest your money? Well, a lot of times it's by I talk about this thing in my book called a negative role model, um, and I have several family members who are very poor with money, and I've learned from them being around them and living paycheck to paycheck and being broke and making some of the same decisions I made as a young man between like 18 and 25, where I've had credit card debt, where I've been living paycheck to paycheck, and most people most people just keep doing that. I like to learn from my mistakes. So when I was 22 or so, and I had $1,000 of credit card debt, which was way more than I could afford to have, and I was paying interest on it, and I never could save $1,000 paid off. I borrowed $1,000 from my younger brother, who was 20, lent me $1,000. I paid it off, and I canceled my credit card, and I didn't have another credit card until about 2 years ago. So for about a decade, I lived no credit cards. So never gonna make that mistake again. And then when I finally started working on my career, I said I'm never gonna live paycheck to paycheck again. Saved a 3 to 6 month amount, paid off all my debts, which in that case was only my car, which I had like maybe $3,000 to $4,000 on my car. Paid it off. Um, it was my very first dev job. I was like, all right, cool. I keep my cost of living as low as possible, and um, that's the first thing. I eliminated all my debts because I saw what people are doing. From in terms of investing, I just tried some things. Some things I lost money on, some things I broke even on, some things I made money on. But I was always taking money and seeing where I could store it once I had my initial savings. And you know, that's really that's really it. I just tried some things. I googled some things. I said, what do people invest their money into? They invest into stocks. Cool, let's do that. And the thing that's really made it easy is when my checks come out, I have it go into three different accounts. One is a spending account, which goes 25% me. So one fourth of my check goes into a spending account that covers utilities, that covers food, that covers whatever I want to spend my money on. I don't care what that 25% goes to, but it covers utilities and food and everything else. 50% goes toward the mortgage. 25% goes towards investments. Now that 50%, it's not fair to say that completely goes towards the mortgage because it covers more than the mortgage. So we pay off additional amounts of the mortgage based off what's there. So that's been my thing I've been doing for a while is I just have it go into separate accounts, one investment, one savings. And so like sometimes some of that money will go into savings because I'm building up my cash reserves as well, not just investing because I do think it's important to have cash on hand for when opportunities come and you want to pick something up. So I'm slowly building that up as well. But yeah, I just keep it out of my hands. I have my spending account, and I do have a credit card now. I just got a cashback credit card a couple months ago because I think, and I pay it daily. I pay it daily, so I don't pay any interest ever. Like I don't even want to think about it. Pay it daily. I treat it as a debit card. I've already needed security clearance for a dev job. When my very first job, I didn't need it, but they were going to get me one because they were in the government contracting space. I use Visual Studio Code. How good of a developer is Josh Fluke? I don't know, man. I never worked with him. Any financial advice books I'd recommend? Yes, or YouTube channels. First, I would recommend on YouTube Dave Ramsey. I'll talk to you about some of the fundamentals, getting your sort of basics together. Second, I would recommend reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'd also recommend reading The Total Money Makeover. Do you think Joshua Fluke bashes college slash computer science degrees a little too hard now? Favorite VS Code extensions? Yeah, man. So bracket pair colorizer is something I really like. Let me pull up some of my extensions real quick. Browser previews also great. Um, editor config. Let's see here. Live server, although you don't really need that if you're using like a Angular CLI or React CLI. Um, Quokka is really nice. Those are some of the major ones. Then you have the various TS lines, CS lines. But yeah, think you could beat Bagel Boss? Dude, I've been seeing this everywhere. I don't know what this is. It's just some guy freaking out. I imagine some white guy. Only a middle-aged white guy would get angry over bagels and scream and yell. Yeah. Some dickhead. Nah, sounds cringy. The Joshua Fluke after show. I don't know, man. But if you guys haven't checked out my latest course, the 100 Front End Interview Questions Challenge, the course is designed to help you pass your front end technical screens. It has over 100 questions, and we also give you tips and tricks for interviewing. You can get in the description for just $9.99 or use the coupon code CodingGod. So I just wanted to announce that. So check that out. Or you check out my 100 algorithm challenge, which you can get for $9.99 as well. With that being said, guys, I am going to take care of some things. I'm going to go have some dinner with some colleagues shortly. I wish you all a great weekend. Probably Saturday and Sunday. I'd live stream today, but I got plans. But look forward to some more live streams where I'll be working on my side project live, building a web app we're going to release to the world piece by piece. It's going to be good. Start hitting the weights again. Yeah, I know, man. I know. Um, the only gains I'm stacking are in my checks right now. Ain't no gains here, baby. We'll get it though. We'll get it. We'll get it. Even when I flex right there, my shoulder's cracked. Did you guys hear that? All right, guys. You guys have a good weekend. I got to get some stuff done before I take off for dinner. With that being said, see you next time. Bye.